bunkers this week on Destructomundo.
It's on, it's on. There's no sound. Play with the rabbit ears.
Reports, incredible as they seem, are not the results of mass hysteria.
Mass hysteria. What do they think we're imagining all this?
Destructomundo.
Archie Bunker?
Those were the days.
The Bunkers.
The Bunker family. Start out with Meathead.
Carol O'Connor's head will definitely survive an apocalypse. So will, what's her name's voice? What's her name's voice? Where the both
Sally Struthers?
and
Oh, the other one. Yeah, who played Edith?
Oh, God. What does this have to do with anything?
the Bunkers.
We're already off topic.
Right.
From the get-go.
Jesus.
We're not off topic. We haven't gotten on topic.
Right, right. No, fortifications, underground and otherwise.
Before, during, and after the apocalypse?
Yeah. I mean, stuff that would be able to hold, people well, survive some kind of blast or
Protect you from the dragons?
Yeah, whatever. I mean, like, survive, like, pretty much anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to be hidden. It's got to be deep underground, maybe, is a good idea, but it doesn't have to be.
Yeah, if you're fighting the mole people.
Right. They got an advantage over you if you're right there next to them.
You have to tailor it to the apocalypse.
Sure.
See, that's the difficult thing, is there's no 100% surefire guarantees,
Just go to Switzerland.
Yeah, the Swiss have it up. I mean, they have everything already from before World War II. They just, they've got barns that have missiles built into them that are deep underground and basically just come out through a concrete tube aimed at X country. They're already like pre-sighted for wherever they're going to go.
Well, actually, they're decommissioning a lot of that stuff.
Well, you can't survive forever.
Yeah, it's just, some of they had like basically like a hidden Maginot Line across the whole country.
Yeah.
They've just started to decommission it because it was unnecessary.
Well, the Maginot Line's an interesting place to start.
It was actually quite effective at not being taken over. It wasn't effective against defending
when
the
you
country.
Consider that all you had to do was go into Belgium.
Yeah.
To go around it. But I mean, it's technical prowess is what is it? It was just such a technical marvel for its time, and even now when you look at it,
it was a huge,
wow.
construction.
Only a few, a few of the bunkers were taken. One was like a little machine gun. I just read an article on it in Military History Quarterly. It was an old one, but it was like one casemate got a really lucky hit by an 88, but that didn't take the guys out. What took it out is that the really lucky hit was the ventilation system, and they all suffocated.
Oh, well, yeah, that's the thing. I mean, any kind of underground stuff's going to have ventilation. And even if it's like a bomb shelter, which is different from a fallout shelter in that it has to be able to survive a direct hit from something. Saddam Hussein had built for him in the 80s like a huge underground network where it was supposed to be able to survive at least a Hiroshima type blast directly. And it was they did it under the auspices of being a subway system. So it got under the radar of, I guess,
the Iraqi National Subway System,
right, or whatever they were talking about. But it was built by the Germans, so I don't know what German outfit built it, but they brought them over and were
Well, in the
doing all
80s,
that
he was
work.
the pro-West guy.
Right. I mean, we were supporting him at least so far as in that we were not supporting Iran.
I did not know he had one. Lucky
Yeah,
bastard.
he actually had quite a bunch of bunkers. I mean, it's an oil-rich country. You know,
I knew he had bunkers. I didn't know he had one that was like
They talked about him
nuke-proof.
like right when the current war, I guess right as they took him over, they were had a lot of news guys down there, but you don't hear anything about him now.
No. They found him in one, the spider hole.
Yeah.
I mean, it was something that he had built specifically to hide in, but...
Hirohito's underground bunker was I don't know if it was directly underneath where they had the Winter Olympics in Nagano, but it was under the mountains of Nagano, Japan.
There are some mountain fortifications that haven't been fully explored. There's ones that not very many people know about. We were talking about the Rock of Gibraltar. Gibraltar is a limestone
Rock.
Basically Jurassic limestone rock, and it's got tunnels carved all up inside that thing, all the way throughout it. And during World War II,
by the Templars?
Well, no, by the British. But after
No, Malta's the one I'm thinking. Yeah, Malta's.
Yeah, Malta's the one that had the Templars.
Yeah.
They weren't dug by the British; they were probably dug by the Welsh.
Well, no,
British don't like to get
well,
their hands dirty.
I'm just saying. But what happened was that during World War II, they moved
order of the
everybody
British.
that lived in Gibraltar out to Jamaica and places like that. British colonies elsewhere, and then the British Army took over the whole colony, and then.
I don't think it's a colony. I think it's a crown possession.
It's a colony.
It's a colony?
Yep, it's actually a colony. It's not its own country. It's not even a principality, so to speak. It's a colony. It's still a colony, which is, I guess, why they got to keep it, since it's not really. I don't know why
They
they
were
got
fighting
to keep
with
it.
Spain over it for years.
Well, they still own it, so I
Yeah.
guess.
Spain wants it. No, don't they put it up for referendum vote, and then everybody always votes it down?
I don't know how it works. But
Nobody, all the
in Gibraltar.
Gibraltans.
I guess they figured that the British Commonwealth's
Gibraltarians?
probably easier to stick with than the Spanish would be.
But yeah, I mean, if you could get a
Consider themselves
rock
British.
in the middle of the ocean and
The Channel Isles.
honeycomb it with tunnels
Right, well,
and
it
underground complexes,
it was
it'd be a hell of a place to hole up. I mean,
yeah,
Just look at the South
especially
Pacific, World War II.
yeah. And that's the problem. The problem is, obviously you need a large amount of money
right,
and
these are
manpower and all
government
this stuff.
installations. You're not,
I mean, so most people don't have the option of. It's beyond most people's means, to put a bomb shelter in your backyard. I mean, that's not something most people are going to be able to do. I mean,
no.
I don't think that was ever as widespread as all that Cold War stuff made it look like.
Without God, if I could find a house that had a bomb shelter,
I mean, there's all
in the
those,
backyard,
like
with a
the
hatch.
Yeah, I mean, all that stuff, like the missile crisis era, and there's at least one Zone episode that has the guy in his bomb shelter.
Yeah.
There's a couple I can think of,
Right.
but I don't think that stuff was ever quite as widespread. It made it seem like every other house in suburban Middle America had a bomb shelter in the backyard.
There's that Heinlein novel, Farnsley's Farm.
Don't know.
I forget what it is, but it's about being in a fallout shelter.
But that would have been badass, having like a bomb shelter in your backyard. I mean, that'd be cool. That would have been awesome if I was a kid. And
the Highland book I'm talking about, I can't think of the name of the book, but perhaps we'll get some of our listeners will.
I don't know much
email,
Heinlein,
but,
honestly.
He wrote the book because he had the experience of owning a bomb shelter in the 50s.
I could see Heinlein owning a bomb shelter.
Right.
I would imagine at least I would have sat down there and written.
Well, that's just it. If I had one, I would hang out there all the time. I would run power down. Of course, it would have power, but I'd run, other than the generator power and have.
And you could obviously you can still do that if you're inclined to, but
I imagine it's a lot more expensive nowadays because of the lack of people, saying, "Oh yeah."
Well, there's a lot of prefab already.
Prefab bomb shelters.
Yeah, they're they look like septic tanks. but they're like big.
Yeah,
they're kind of like lozenge shaped. They look like a big cigar tube, but they're like 12 feet tall, and then they have floors. And so underneath the floor is storage, and they come prefab anywhere from like a one-man deal for like a few days to like, there's one that's like a couple $100,000, and it's like, it can hold 25 people for like a month.
It'd be awesome.
Yeah, it would be really cool to have something like that. I mean, the government, of course, is going to have lots more, money to spend on that type of stuff.
Yeah.
And, of course, they got installations that everybody's heard of, like Cheyenne Mountain. And
that one in Virginia that not everybody's heard of.
What's that?
Is that the one where, for the Washington, D.C., like, politician types? There's that underground... They say underground city. It's not quite that big, but there's the one they built for for Congress and whatever, for all of them to go, in case DC was going to get nuked.
Yeah, and there's like one that's like super secret, and it's got some stupid name like Bird's Eye or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know.
And there's
supposed to be one under the White House. That's where Cheney was doing his operations, like.
That's where he was pulling the string.
Right, pulling the string.
That's where Dick Cheney's brain was.
That's where he was conversing with the demons that the Republican Party.
Yeah, and there's the one that the British government built, that big one.
Yeah, it's for sale.
Yeah, it'd be awesome.
Yeah, unfortunately, it
was like in the 80s,
expensive
in the late 80s when they started. They decommissioned and started selling a lot of those missile silos in the Midwest.
Oh, those are great.
That would just be the coolest thing to turn into.
They're not expensive as hell either. They're about $150,000. You get, an acre of land around you.
Some of them come with a lot more land than that.
Yeah.
Well, they have like a house built there. It's not like a house, but it's like an installation sort of. It's not, much. But
I saw one on TV. A guy turning a house, and there was nothing above ground. There was a mailbox. It was almost comical. There was a little post mailbox, like your suburban mailbox, and next to it, and it was all level ground. There was a little section that was effectively a driveway, a place to park his car, and there was like a keypad-looking thing, and the entrance to the house was it was two large concrete slabs that were the doors. They were mounted flush
with the rest of the ground.
But they were on the ground, but they split down the middle, and they were probably it was probably a well over 20 by 20 square. It had probably much bigger than that. Now I think about it, but they split down the middle and opened, and there was an elevator that went down. And there was like nothing above ground. He parked his car, could get the mail, and like he went to there was like a keypad to unlock it, and these like reinforced concrete slabs like opened, and then there was an elevator down.
Talk about like dramatic, hey, come pick me up. Yeah, just drive by.
Yeah, but
you'll see me.
It was funny, but there was nothing above ground but that, and like he went down the elevator, and then there was a tunnel that you went down, and then there was the living quarters, and you turned it in. There was like a house, like it's where he lived and stuff. But
I can't imagine anything cool.
He had filthy amounts of money because of course he paid maybe a couple $100,000 for it all, but then it completely renovated the whole thing and turned it into.
I saw one.
But the problem with stuff like that is,
there's a Russian nuclear missile pointed at you.
No, well that too, but a lot of that
they
stuff.
Know where you live. They have your address.
But when you convert it into your own house like that, then presumably you're put back on the you're on the grid. Now, when it was a government missile silo, it would have been on a separate network so that there was
it would have been on diesel. More than likely,
of some sort.
Most of that stuff was just diesel generators and the ability to store.
So I'm
lots
sure
and lots and lots of diesel fuel.
if you get it on, if you turn it into your own sort of bunker, fortress, whatever.
Hey, if it comes with its own nuke, you can just pop that warhead open and.
So, obviously you're gonna be prepared, but you're gonna. I don't know. You could live there quite comfortably, but you're gonna have to be prepared in case if something happens. And then all your utilities are gone, so you're going to have all your own backup stuff.
Yeah,
but it would be,
especially if the elevator doesn't work.
But I mean,
and
it would
you
be,
can't get out.
it would probably be, I don't know, it'd probably be impractical to live like that all the time off of, I don't know. I'm sure you'd have to find some way to hook it up to. I mean, if you're actually going to live there as a house.
It depends on what kind of problem.
I guess it depends on
having.
It depends on what kind of person you are, and if you don't mind
living underground for a long period.
Yeah,
of time.
but I mean, like, if you're not gonna, I don't know, what do you do for running water if you don't get on the, utility mains, or you have a septic tank, or
you probably have a tank. There's a lot of people that live out in the rural areas that just have tanks. People come and fill them up. That's it.
Pits, literally.
Well,
but I mean, a lot of those.
You can get on propane and you can get on water.
Just
for most of that stuff, you can cook with propane and you can heat you can heat with it, and as long as you have a supply of it coming, you're in pretty good shape. But I mean, once you run out of A, diesel fuel, B, propane, or C, water, you're in kind of dire straits. You're going to need to figure out a way to go get more, or you're going to have enough to survive whatever you think is going to happen. Like if you had a nuclear fallout, you may be able to survive something like that if you're far enough away from the blast. But if you were, say, right on it, maybe it would take out your water, that you had put in.
Unless you were downwind from the blast.
Well, it would just depend. I mean, it's just going to depend what the circumstances are. But if you're like in a situation where you're not dealing with a nuclear problem, you're dealing more with zombies or
giant rabbits.
Right. Then
dinosaurs.
Who knows? I mean, right.
Dinosaurs.
The mutants want your water and your propane too.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows?
And your women.
So those things kind of survive more Cold War era problems more than anything else, and some of them won't even survive that. They're like a bunker busters, where they basically drop like a bomb that's meant to break through the ground, and then they drop like incendiaries, or they drop what
about if the mad scientist has a giant drilling machine?
Right.
They come
if
right
you're
through
dealing
the
with
middle
that,
of your.
no hope.
Yep, or giant worms.
But there are things that can get through. It's just that the
Those
government
hollow earthers that are working their way towards the surface.
they got their own way in and out.
Dirty kobolds.
See, one day you're expanding, you knock down a wall to, you're next thing you bust your way into a kobold lair. That's the last I ever heard of him. He vanished. I don't know. There are all these little footprints all over the
quartermass in a pit.
He said he was doing some construction down there, but yeah, you bust in on a kobold lair and grab your pole arm and.
Luckily, I have one.
Yes. Oh my goodness!
Yes, you're prepared. But
well, they were talking about the one for sale, the bunker in England for sale. It was going, it wasn't expensive.
It's like £5 million.
Right. And I mean that's
considering it's a small underground city.
It's 220,000 square feet or something.
Yeah, it's got its own little rail line and all that shit. So
it even had a pub, didn't it?
It had a pub built into it and everything, but you have to develop the
right there
air base that's above it if you want to buy
pub.
it. They're talking about making it into the
£5 million for an underground pub is enough.
Yeah. I don't know. It's a
everything
Wiltshire,
else. Everything else is just.
It's
gravy.
a Wiltshire Avenue, London address, man. That's to say, something.
Everything else just gravy.
Believe me, if there were a underground pub that I could go to right now, I'd be in it drinking. I guarantee it. And I don't care what kind of cover I have to pay.
It reminds me. Here we have that Louisville Underground that used to be that.
The limestone quarry.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an underground limestone quarry.
Where people used to go and smoke dope. Not that I ever did.
Yeah, but it's been converted to an underground storage facility.
And it's absolutely
all underneath,
huge.
Yeah, it's just underneath the zoo, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's in that general area right by the Louisville Zoo.
Yeah. I don't know how, but I mean The commercial shows like the vehicle storage area.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like a huge friggin' parking lot. There's cars and boats and RVs and shit all parked down there. And then there's a whole separate section that's like the record storage.
Right.
Because it's all, the climate's stabilized. It's like 61 degrees or something year round.
Yeah, no humidity.
Yeah. But there's a whole different section that's compartmentalized, and you can, where it's almost like a
mini storage
place. You can get different sized ones.
Well, it's like the salt mines in Utah. Utah has a.
But that thing, I don't know how far underground it is. I'd be interested to see, but
I think it's built into the side of a cliff face, but I don't know how far underground it goes.
That makes me think of that episode of The Night Stalker with the dinosaur creature. The underground data storage place.
Tell us about it.
Kolchak, the Night Stalker?
Yeah, I know about Kolchak, the Night Stalker.
It's one of those places like that, where it's 300 or 400 feet underground, and they store like sensitive documents and stuff to protect them, and which there are places like that all over the country and the world, I guess, like corporate records, government records, all that. It's protected in a controlled. But they're like building a new wing. They're like digging these tunnels to build a new wing, and a couple guys vanish, and then they find one guy mauled. But there's actually
I've seen the beginning of that one.
They basically break into these natural tunnels to some cave complex, and there's this sort of lizard dinosaur-looking creature roaming around down there. That was always one of my favorite episodes, but the monster's really hokey looking, the lizard thing. Just remember that when you're digging around underground. Like I said, could be kobolds, could be lizard men,
right?
Could be those albino Atlantean hollow earthers. Orcs, mole people, slime people. Another great movie involving underground creatures coming up to the surface to destroy us. So be careful, man. Those underground are fuckers, man. They've been down there for thousands of years, and they've had enough. They want the surface world. They're gonna come up and they're gonna take it from us.
Well, as I was saying, the salt mines in Utah, that they've hollowed out enough to where they're using them for record keeping now too, and the government pays them for usage for record keeping.
Yeah.
But the Mormons keep records in there of everybody who's a Mormon, and they have that.
And they store their extra supplies of magic underwear,
I guess. I don't know.
Their emergency supplies of magic Mormon underpants.
Well, the whole thing is like if you become a Mormon, they retroactively make everybody that's related to you a Mormon also.
Oh, that's awfully generous.
They don't make them a Mormon. They can just get into heaven.
Right. By being a Mormon, I mean, they add your name to the list, but they put that list in these bunkers that they built, out of salt mines in order for when Armageddon happens, there's a list. So I guess
the heavenly accountants can come down and check.
Yeah, right. I guess that's the first place they're going to hit is Utah. It seems kind of funny that they'd have to go to all that trouble, but that's what you get for getting your religion out of a hat.
Mm-hmm. I did not know that.
But there's lots of stuff. New Mexico's got plenty of property underground. I mean, for the most part, there's just bunkers everywhere. Any state that has like wide expanses is going to have its share.
We have that big one here that's all full of nerve gas.
Yeah, it's down in Richmond. No,
it's that area. Yeah, it's somewhere in that area.
Yeah, that's not really. Each little bunker is underground. You can kind of see it. It looks like mound.
Yeah,
dwellers.
It's like those ammunition
builders,
ammunition storage places. But there's a fair amount of underground stuff there.
Yeah.
Well, they had that place that they busted. I don't know, about a decade ago with.
I heard a thing just on NPR the other day about that place. The people trying to get them to get the friggin' nerve gas out of there.
Well, isn't it? Not only is it a nerve gas storage unit, but there's also I guess an incinerator so they could destroy it.
Yeah,
that's also there. But that's kind of Let's burn some nerve gas.
Burning nerve.
Well, they do that
just
stuff
seems
with
like a bad
munitions.
idea.
They went to the trouble of doing They destroyed all those munitions a few years back in Nevada. They would take all that stuff out there and burn it. It would just like giant fireworks.
So I guess your
And
best
they did that
your
on,
best
like,
bet, like I said, if you can't, most people can't prepare something like that ahead of time.
No, this is kind of what the people. This is the haves versus the have-nots. We're pretty much guessing that everybody listening to the show, except for the NSA, is the have-nots. This is what the haves have, and you can try to emulate it as much as possible, but major governments are going to have installations that they're not going to want you inside of unless you work for them. And
But you could dig a hole in your backyard, line it with garbage bags,
And
cover it with a piece of
aluminum foil.
plywood.
right.
But save the sod to camouflage it.
The important thing is to put on your lead suit more than anything.
You can't
else.
dig tiger traps all over your back.
Well, no. What you need is like the suits that they had when they were going to the meteor on Gilligan's Island. They had those lead suits that they
I don't
had.
remember
They
that.
boiled up in a cauldron.
Right. And they had the lead suits with the glasses and stuff, and they were walking towards the meteor,
Okay.
trying to get the. I don't know what they were doing. With trying
Is
to
that
blow
like
up
the Color Out of Space episode of
right?
Gilligan's Island?
Well, the funny thing
that
is
would've
that
been
they
awesome.
had like their own clothes, only they were, made into. Gilligan had like a lead,
Oh yeah, I remember that now.
hat
Yes.
and
Okay.
I think there was
sunglasses
even the
on.
little the skipper hit him with his lead hat.
Right. Yeah, he took it off and went.
Okay, I
Don't.
remember that.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So yeah, for most people, the building some sort of a fortification ahead of time isn't really an option.
No. This is just kind of a description of some.
But if you know,
it
would be advisable if there is stuff in your area to know where it is.
Well, yeah, if
Yeah,
you
like
can
we're-
find something.
Yeah, like we're
that.
talking about. We're the kind of goofballs that know where this shit is around
Right.
here.
Well, like I was about to say
Okay,
with
storage
the
building.
in southern Kentucky, they found a place about a decade ago that was a drug bunker, and it was large enough to they were growing pot in it, like hydroponically, but they were growing pot, and it was large enough to where you had to have a 4-wheeler to get around in it, and it was built it was just built by the people who were growing the pot. Apparently, they've made enough money to be able to afford to build an underground installation.
Sweet.
Kind of like the pool in that Cheech and Chong movie. Cheech and Chong.
Yeah, the big fake pool.
Yeah.
Where they grow all their dope.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, if you can do some research and find out the stuff that's in your area.
Look for places that
And you get the map on the wall. You get your own version of the big board. And you're
right
marking
big board. You can't,
marking everything on the big board. Like,
can't let them in here.
I'll see the big board. But yeah, that makes perfect sense. Know where that stuff is because
Or just the places, the common everyday places to quote unquote occupy.
Yeah, it's
Like we were talking like that church right up here.
Yeah,
It's I don't know what style you would call it, but it's
A lot of churches
pretty
had
austere.
fallout shelters in them also. If you look at the back doors that go into the rectories and stuff like that, they actually have fallout shelter.
and especially here
signs on them.
Louisville has a fantastic collection of giant Victorian era churches. I mean, we have some really big old churches, and those things are
they're all pretty
really
solidly built.
Yeah, they're really solidly built. A lot of them have pretty big. Even if they don't have fallout shelters, a lot of them do have big basements.
Well, the
There's
thing to
a
do
lot
would
of
be to
stuff
try to
underground.
go to your local library and pick up a map. See if you can find a map from the 50s and the 60s of the civil defense shelters in your area,
Yeah.
and then
That's
drive
all-
around
that's
and see where they are and
all
if
that
they're
stuff.
still there.
That stuff's got to be on record somewhere.
Yeah,
Well,
and
I
they
think-
were pretty much public knowledge. They wanted people to know where they could go in the case of an attack.
They've just taken down all those civil defense fallout signs.
Right,
That used
you
to
just
be
want to
in.
know
Yeah.
where those places are, and then you can poke around and see if it's obvious there's a big concrete door, or a door downstairs in a church, or in a government building someplace, you can pretty much bet that's going to lead to or is the fallout shelter.
I think they label a lot of things fallout shelters that are not what kind of pretty much what we're talking about. I think they were just like sort of sealable. And
it looks like he was saying, fallout shelter and bomb shelter are different.
Yeah. Well, you have to decide for yourself whether or not that's going to be appropriate for the type of situation you're in. Yeah. Obviously, if it's going to be an attack by something other than nuclear, you're going to need to go someplace, that's designed for.
I bet you they just labeled
better.
Everything a fallout shelter that was considered safe in a tornado situation. Like,
probably
no windows.
Yeah, a lot of schools are designed.
But as far as like finding something and then improvising fortifications, after the fact, like whenever the shit's coming down.
You go to churches, the evil can't come to you.
Yeah, well, I say if the zombies are loose in the street or brain-sucking aliens or whatever, I mean,
if the vampires
if they're minions
attack,
of Satan, they can't.
Yeah,
if the vampires attack, you're pretty much in the clear.
But I mean, like I said, the churches we have here, those huge Victorian era churches, I mean, those things are very solidly built, and I think most of them would be relatively easily, defended. I mean, they do have some big windows and stuff, but those windows are usually up off the ground level.
Also,
like the big stained glass windows, you can't get to from the ground outside.
But in the past 20 years, they've been putting at least rock-proof glass on the outside of the stained glass to preserve them, and stained glass windows are pretty thick.
Yeah, but I wouldn't want to be anywhere where I had giant pane of glass to shard up and shoot at me.
That safety glass they've been putting on the outside is like, it won't stop a bullet, but it does make it pretty safe.
Well, I prefer underground.
And you've only got you've got a number of entrances, but it wouldn't be hard to. Wouldn't be I would certainly trust something like that over most modern buildings, which have huge glass fronts, shitty little doors.
Yeah.
I'd rather have something like a big ass church that was built in 1902 or something.
Or that industrial ice building down here in downtown.
Oh, the green one.
Yeah, the one that's been for sale for a long time, and that is a pretty solid building.
Yeah, I say some of those old warehouse buildings and stuff like that. I mean, those are that's good. But modern stuff is so crappy the way they build it. And
right, it's meant to hold up against certain things, and a lot of them are made earthquake proof now, depending on where you are in the world. But
the storefronts, with all glass, and doors are just like a metal frame with some glass in it.
Right.
Places like that. Yeah, I'd much rather have some big old, place where it's either brick or
6-foot concrete walls. Yeah, absolutely.
That shit's serious, but some of those churches here are huge, and a lot of those those big old churches like that, they have their own grounds, around it.
Right.
So some of them have been encroached upon here by residential stuff, but a lot of them still have some open ground around them. They usually have fences. A lot of them have outbuildings with, some other stuff, but it wouldn't be a bad little place if you could, set it up
absolutely
right.
not.
And then
usually they're stocked with whatever they're going to need. And also,
most of them here, they have that tower that you can snipe from too.
Yeah, should you ever have to get up there and do it, have a vantage point.
Once you get up in the tower, but I'm screwed because I can't set foot on holy ground, but I'll start to smolder. But just in theory, someone could do it.
I went to a wedding at an Episcopal church, and I was able to walk inside and...
Well, that's Episcopalian. That doesn't hurt.
You see, that's the thing. I don't know what would happen to me in a Lutheran church, perhaps, but
I don't know. But yeah, a place like that, if you're sort of I don't know how long I'd want to try to stay in a place like that, but
they kind of another thing about churches, not around here because they're not old enough, but there's a long tradition of the old churches kind of being built as a secondary fortress, really.
Right.
Especially during the Middle Ages or the Dark Ages with the Vikings and the British Isles.
Yeah, I'm sure some of those places are not too far from being a small.
Well, I know in Washington D.C. the National Cathedral is a pretty mighty structure.
Yeah.
And it's one of the largest buildings in metropolitan D.C. area for what it is. You know, it's the I forget what largest cathedral it is in the world, but I mean it is enormous, and it has functionally it would make a great fortification.
Yeah.
Because you'd be able to have tons of people inside of it. I'm sure it has ground levels as well, you know, below ground levels.
I would imagine. Yeah, I said like some of the bigger ones here, and then the ones that are not necessarily the churches, but the
parking garages also. I mean, if you consider like the lower levels, also can withstand some damage. The parking lot in the World Trade Center, back when it was bombed.
Then you gotta worry about all that stuff coming down on top of you.
Well, but
I mean, you're okay down there, but you might not be able to get out. So.
Well, but it was bombed underneath, and
yeah.
it survived the lower parking levels where the bomb went off.
Yeah.
It was generally at least here, most of those parking garages are just the standalone ones are just so open.
Well, they're above ground,
which would be a good and a bad thing. Depends really on what the nature of the.
Well, if all you're looking to do is get underground, I mean, if you're trying to emulate what we're talking about with the government having, then you're talking about getting hundreds of feet underground. A parking garage isn't going to do that for you, but it can get you 30 feet underground. And that may be enough to survive whatever you're going to have to do. Then you can come up above ground and maybe get some people together and go take over whatever the government has.
I can envision a lot of situations where, if something horrible suddenly hits, and you're out somewhere, or you're at work or whatever, or even if you're just sitting at home. But especially, if you're out someplace and you can't get home because some, whatever horrible cataclysmic event, the saucers are coming down now, and something like that. But you may have to take shelter somewhere, because obviously you don't want to be
from the death ray.
Yes, because you don't want to be running down the middle of the street and get incinerated by the beams.
I'd say it's a general rule for most things. Having a whole lot of concrete between you and whatever it is a good idea.
So, I mean, if you're the sort of nut that I am, like you actually, when you're out and about in the city where you happen to live, you think about that sort of thing, and you identify stuff like that. Like, that would be a good place if and I pass this, I go generally the same, I don't go the same route to work every day, because if you go the same way every day, they know where they can get you. So every now and then you take different routes. You don't always go the same way to and from work every single day, because then they can plan when they're going to get you. But in general, there are several paths I take to work. But you notice things. I like I said, if you're like me and you think about things like this way more than most people do, and you'll stop and notice, like, well, that'd be that's a pretty. Because out there, that's suburbia, and they don't have the big structures like I'm talking about. Like I said, those big old churches and some of the big old warehouse buildings like we have in the city properly, and that's all that more modern construction. But just if you think about stuff like that and like identify good locations, but things like firehouses are even newer ones are still pretty substantial buildings,
right?
Governing government buildings. Specifically, the one I'm thinking of is here in town, the old post office down on is it Broadway?
The old post office on Broadway.
It's the big building. It says like U.S. Post Office, and it's just government offices now. But it's not like the office of the mayor or like a
But a lot of
building
those
is like just a big piece of granite, really.
Yeah,
right. If you can find a building that's built like like blocks of concrete or blocks of granite, quarried stone, pretty much anything that looks like it's been there a long, long time, chances are it's going to be there for a long, long time to come.
Yeah.
Even though it may not survive a direct blast from the death ray from the saucers, and it might not take a nuclear hit if it's ground zero, but there's a pretty good chance that if it's built out of something solid, it'll still be there.
Those big forts, like up in the north, mostly I think in the northeast, like Ticonderoga, those things are built really, really cool.
Well, they built them like to be able to deflect cannonballs.
Yeah, well, also so you can get the interlocking fields of fire.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, they're
That Star Fort.
yeah,
stuff.
that whole it started like in the what this late 1600s, early 1700s. I would say the early 1700s, like Marlborough era, War of Spanish Succession type. Well, maybe not that early, but that that.
Interesting stuff.
Too bad there's none around here. We've got like.
Yeah, if you live in
maybe
some
the
place
vault
where
out
there's
of
a
Fort
historic
Knox.
fort.
Yeah, the only fort we have is what's the one up?
There's Boonesboro, and there's
Yeah,
there's the reproduction of Boonesboro.
They're like wooden forts.
Yeah, those are like I was gonna say that's the only forts we have. I've been there.
They're like F troop. They're not the kind of fort you want to hold up into if you don't have.
They pulled off zombies for a bit.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't know.
But yeah, the walls are wooden posts.
Log.
Right.
Driven in the ground and sharpened.
I mean, the lucky thing is that you're out in a rural area, and that
But we have lots of those.
If it's like one of those historic places, they might even have the tools which you could use to be able to live your life. Because if it's like historic Boonesboro or someplace like that, they got the grinding wheel for grain and crap like that. Where you can't find one of those. It's not like you can hop down to Walmart and pick up a grinding wheel.
True.
And some of those people might even survive, and you can make them your, slave.
But I mean, I guess,
make them do your
Slave's
bidding.
such a bad word. Perhaps vassals.
Well, I'm not saying that you should make like the people that are working
The
in
reenactors.
historic, the reenactors into your slaves. But if you're the warlord of the area that you live in,
if you're the local
then
humongous,
that's pretty much what everything comes down to.
If you're your own little humongous.
Yep.
Yes. That's yeah.
And then if they're the right type of reenactors, then you have like a small unit of militia of some sort. You just let them actually put bullets in their guns this time.
Right. Yeah. You just sort of give power to the people who follow. Want to follow.
So yeah, if you plan ahead properly and identify stuff in your area that would be useful, but obviously if you have but I said that's a very temporary thing, because if it's not your place and you can plan ahead, obviously if you have a place, then you're stockpiling all your crap there, and you've got food, you've got water, you've got medical supplies and ammunition, and clean socks and underwear and
porn and tissues,
and
we've gone
and booze.
We've gone over a lot of what you need as far as stuff.
But yeah, I mean, if you've got your own place, but these are places, these sort of makeshift, temporary places to hole up for a while. Obviously, you can't stay there because,
well,
you're not going to.
But there was the people that slept out in the metal shed and Night of the Comet that survived because they were in the metal shed. But I mean, that couldn't survive a direct blast from anything.
These are the sort of things we're talking about is like I said, if the saucers are coming down and you got to get off the street because people are being vaporized or whatever,
right.
or the slime people are coming out of the sewers and hacking people up.
Well, that's another place though. The storm sewers are underground enough for the most part for most things. I mean, there are vents that can,
but then there's like 30.
If there's like a lot of rain, then you're just kind of screwed.
Well, you don't want to stay down there, but you
and
could
giant
live down there
alligators
for maybe a day or two, right? I mean, the mutants
yes.
and the slime people.
Friggin' Chud world down there, man.
If the Chud comes up, yeah, you don't want to go where
terminal
the Chud
crazies.
is. But some of the.
But what I was gonna say is these are places like the sort of temporary shelter. But obviously, at some point, the other sort of fortifications you might be concerned about is the thing of after this apocalyptic thing, if you've got a group of people and if you're not being sort of nomadic, whatever, the kind of thing, like the people after the apocalypse sort of banding together, and if you start getting your shit, you've got stuff, and then you've got to defend your stuff, and then you might try to build a fortification.
Right. Yeah. If you have to defend yourself.
Yeah. If you've got a group or a few extended families or something, sticking together and trying to function together, then you might have to find another sort of fortified place where you can. And if you're doing the sort of daily forays, you're out foraging for supplies, scrounging, and then you've got a place to come back to. You've got your own little your little base of operation.
The best thing would be to find you want to find the underground fortification that has like all the military equipment from a long time ago, like in Logan's Run where they found the tank.
But
in the TV show, that was the best thing ever. That TV tank.
It's but I mean, yeah, that's another type of fortification, that might be something to consider. Like I said, that's afterwards, and if
you're squat.
Yeah, because
dams and things like that.
Because you've got, and like I said, unless you're living like totally nomadically and you're just wandering around trying to find, but if there's an area that is safe enough to remain in, and there's some supplies somewhere around,
Right.
Like I said, if you're it was like in Omega Man, he's got his like fortified apartment, but he's going out every day doing stuff, but he's got this place to go back to where it's safe. That type of a thing, but this would be something bigger because it would be like a group of people.
Yeah.
And if you're out scrounging through the wrecked, grocery stores or digging around through stuff for some supplies and stuff, but that, you'd have to find a place that would hold everybody and that had, the facilities that you need. And then you go out and you collect stuff and you bring it back, and that's, but you'd have to fortify that place too, and I guess you need to have some idea of what you're doing, or some basic. You don't need to be like a engineer, really, but
no. But if you were able to take over places that were key strategic spots in your area, like let's say there was a bridge that went someplace where there was a lot of supplies. Like if you took that bridge and you were able to keep it, fortify the bridge, basically make it into a gated bridge, then you're keeping yourself safe.
And you lived
simply by
underneath it
controlling
anybody who came across.
Well, you're keeping yourself safe simply by controlling the access to the place where you're at. And I hate to bring it up, but that's what they had in the Postman. And
I've only seen parts of that. The dam is the only part I saw.
Yeah, they had the dam, and then they had the bridge, and they had the who goes there whole bit, and I'm so and so. Let me
the Black Knight,
right? But that kind of thing.
But yeah, I mean, I say you don't have to be an engineer in terms of fortifying it, but I said obviously minimal number of windows, but obviously windows are good because they allow visibility. That's the trade-off between
Yeah, you might not
because
know what's
like
going on above
the
ground.
most secure place in
under.
purely defensive terms. It has is like a concrete room, 5,000 feet underground or something. But when you're down there, you have no fucking idea what's going on anywhere else.
Exactly.
So I mean, but you want a minimal number of windows because that's fewer places for anybody to get in. But windows are good because they allow you to see what's going on outside.
Mm-hmm.
You want a minimal number, or a fairly small number of doorways, because that's fewer places to defend, fewer doors to have to cover. But obviously you want more than one, because one way in equals one way out, and you always need you don't want just one door, because then if that door gets overrun, then you're trapped. So I mean, if you find a place that's solidly constructed with that doesn't have like one whole, like a storefront that's glass, you know what I mean? Like,
right, right.
But a place with a fairly, maybe 3 or 4 doors and, enough windows that you can see at least, a fair amount of stuff. Because you're not, and a second floor would help.
Or you can get yourself a cushy government job and, hope that they'll need you afterwards, to
True.
file taxes, because the IRS has themselves a sweet gig apparently. Like they have the whole like IRS bunker where they have all the records and they're set up to take taxes right away, like from whatever's left, which is amazing to me. But they still have that sort of thing. A good friend of mine works for the federal government, and he works inside a bunker. He has to take an elevator down. It's a Cold War bunker in Maryland, and they take him all the way down, and he works IT, for the government. But yeah, I mean, apparently this thing would survive quite a blast, and it's the kind of building that, maybe it's a little stuffy. If you're claustrophobic, you're going to have a problem with. But I would think that would be just about the coolest thing ever, is to be working deep underground.
But what if it happens when you're not at work?
Exactly. I mean, and there's a whole lot of shit you have to go through to be able to go there anyways. And if you're not, there when it's happening, chances are you're not going to be able to get there.
Yeah, because there's people running there,
locked down.
When the zombies are rising and everybody, they're running there trying to get in the gates, and the guards start, shooting them because they're trying to force their way in.
Right.
They're in total lockdown. Yep, I can see that happen.
So yeah, you have that. It's going to have to happen between 8 and 5.
Yeah.
So, and that's only a third of the day. So,
and I hope that's a day I brought my lunch.
Right. Because then you can trade it for sex. You take that ham sandwich, and your shitty bologna sandwich with mustard is,
I don't eat bologna. With
you
mustard.
couldn't trade that for anything,
and rightly so.
Regularly, but then the apocalypse happens, and that thing becomes gold. It's like owning your own little brick of gold.
Because you could conceivably possess the last bologna sandwich on Earth.
Right, irradiated.
Yes, the last non-atomic bologna sandwich on Earth.
Yep,
you'd be like a god among men.
Exactly. You just cut off a corner for
until it
girl.
got rank.
Until the bologna got sweaty.
Even then,
you've got to pack it in dry ice. Keep the bologna stable.
Right. Well, even then.
Well, if you're underground, it's that controlled environment there. Your bologna will last longer, at least.
Yeah. You got to hope.
Well, it'll
there goes your godlike status.
Yeah, I mean, it'll last longer than if you're like in a office building above ground.
Sure, and you're better off than the guy that's like got all this milk.
Or the person who brought a salad for lunch.
Right. Yeah. Well, the milk guy's only going to be God for like a week. And then
without refrigeration, maybe a day or so.
Right. I mean,
have to drink it all. But,
right.
Yeah.
And that's another thing. I mean, you have to consider like the necessity for food.
If you're stuck in a place like that, you're going to be, raiding the vending machines and all that stuff, I guess, because
Yeah, and if you were, say, in a grocery store,
you're in the break room eating packets of instant coffee.
Right. Well, yeah, you're eating whatever's like got crunch to it, and it won't kill you.
You've got one packet of instant coffee and one packet of non-dairy creamer, and you're like mixing them in your mouth.
Well, you're going to be like in the gold rush, eating a shoe, chewing on leather and stuff.
Yeah. It's
But yeah, let's say you happen to be someplace like a grocery store. You're gonna have to catalog everything in the grocery store as to when it goes bad, and you eat all that first. You got to figure all your milk's gonna go bad, so you grab all the instant or all the powdered macaroni and cheese, and you take it back to the deli, and you make yourself like a giant tub of macaroni and cheese, and that's what you eat
just
for like the next month. Yeah, you just basically swim in it and eat your way out.
So you're like, it's just out of control, but it's like, because you're laying in a vat of macaroni and cheese, eating it with your hands. I got some weird sort of Harkonnen image there of this enormous man, like up to his nipples in a vat.
Oh man!
Oh man!
In a
Where did that
tub.
come from?
In a tub. You're like immerse yourself in it, and you're just shoveling it into your mouth.
It's the end of the world, man. You can do whatever you want. There's no social order anymore. You can be whoever you feel like being.
See, if you're holed up in a supermarket, the first thing that's going to go bad, like you said, is the milk, but then also like all the fruit and stuff.
Produce,
Right.
yeah.
But
Eggs
even
and
if you
things
save
like
that, even if it starts to go bad, just find a field, chuck it in there. You know, hopefully something will grow. I mean,
True.
Granted, the apples probably won't grow apple trees.
No,
But
no.
man, one zucchini, that'll turn it into over like 2 zucchini generations. You'll have 5 gazillion zucchinis. Those things like multiply exponentially, like kind of like pumpkins too. Anything, I guess that's maybe the same family.
How do
I
you
don't know.
get more pumpkins? Do you take the seeds out and plant the seeds, or you just dig a hole and stuff the pumpkin in it?
We've grown, like taken old pumpkins that weren't carved
Yeah.
and just toss them behind the garage. There was like a bale of hay that's been sitting back there for a long time that's kind of decomposing. And the next year we had a couple.
Really?
Yeah. No, I mean that we weren't even trying. You know, it wasn't like. I mean, that was like basically above the grass. So, I mean, if you like tilled the soil and even like remotely
Yeah.
kept up the watering and all that, you could those things grow.
Yeah,
easy.
some of that, I guess, yeah, some stuff like that does grow.
But if you got like a
easy.
bunch of seeded grapes, you're not going to grow like a grapevine probably. But you could have, at least you'll have pumpkins and zucchini.
Well, yeah. But folks out there, if you should find yourself in a situation where you have some pods growing out behind your shed, and
Don't fall asleep.
no, you want to take care of making sure that you don't
Stay awake and
Drop your
bust
guard.
those pods up.
because there aren't a whole lot of fortifications against body snatchers. Well, I
Pods.
guess that's bringing us, to the end of the show tonight. Our Ted's not with us. He's at work, unfortunately.
He's got some work to take care of.
Right. So we're missing him for this episode, and he'll be back for the next one.
Was this like freelance work or? No, he said said it was because he was salaried. He had to.
It was quote work.
I have no idea what that could be. Tell you the truth,
I don't know.
Don't know.
I think he's not partying.
Well, he'll tell us next week, maybe. And he's a secretive guy, though. He might
Yeah,
not
he
tell
didn't.
us
He
at
didn't
all.
offer much details as to what he
No,
had
it
to
was
do.
work.
I mean, I know there was something going on like tonight at work, but those things don't last very long.
I don't know. He wasn't here, so
Yeah.
he was doing something else. But he'll be back for the next show, I hope. So, from us to you, this has been James.
And Adam.
And me.
You always do that. What's the deal?
That's my catchphrase.
Right.
It's my shtick. That's what I do.
Well, from all of us to all of you.
To all of you.
Happy mid-January.
All right, and if you're listening to this in your own personal bunker, give us the address. So
Let us
we
know.
can-
'Cause
Yeah,
we may need a place to go.
exactly.
Down on you like Cossacks.
So get out there on the streets tomorrow and find those places.
So give us your geographical location and how many feet below the ground you are.
And find all your local bunkers and mark them on your big map.
Right. And send that map to us
Yes, send us a copy.
at destructomundo@gmail.com, or any of your suggestions and or comments, and we will read them on the air. And when the
Here's not.
weather turns and we can get back into the news bunker, we'll have our robot read it on the air, because she's kind of stuck back there at the news bunker. Right now we're in the Derek bunker,
My bunker.
and a fine bunker it is, but it's no news bunker.
But I don't have a robot.
No, he doesn't have a robot. So
But I have more guns here.
yeah, it's better equipped.
It's a trade-off.
Right. Well, I need a kill bot. I'll just
Okay.
program her.
Sure.
All right. Well, good night.